Are we supposed to be looking at the camera?
I usually look at the camera.
Oh, okay.
We're talking online too. It's so exciting.
Now I feel frozen.
Great. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Robert Barr, and this is the Reverend Sharon Dittmar, who some of you, if you were joined us about a month ago.
Yes. And your viewers were so kind. They welcomed me.
That's right. You were
so Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and they sent you emails, and you have those.
Did.
They were so.
I read them. I read what you wrote and posted.
You were so excited, I know. So we'll talk about that in the beginning. We're delighted you're here. I'm talking too quickly. Sharing this Shabbat with us, to be able to do that. I'm delighted you're here sharing the Shabbat with me and with all of us. We're going to read a little bit, and then we'll talk. So if you want to start, that'd be great.
Oh.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let us listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly.
Let the Sabbath shine a light into a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed. Let us remember a reason to be joyful, a way to be gentle. Let the Sabbath be a time for opening up. Let us find strength in our dreams and trust in our strength. So we're delighted you're here at ourjewishcommunity.org. Here in Loveland, Ohio, we're at Congregation Beth Adam that began this initiative. I want to talk about a couple things. One of the things that I want to talk about before we really get into our conversation is technology. It allows us to share this bold, innovative voice. Now, for some of you, I know who are watching live, the format has changed. It's changed for everyone, whether you're watching live or in archives, and it's a little bit different. We're still on live stream, but it's the new version of live stream versus the original live stream.
Okay, that means nothing to me.
I know it. I wanted to see what you were going to do. So if some of you were having some problems with the chat feature, if you had an old live stream log on, and that's what you've been using and you've been sort of having a problem with it, it's because the old log in doesn't work. You need to actually create a new one, or you could use your Facebook. The chat does appear a bit differently on the side. It is inverted. That is a function of live stream. We can't change that. What you should also know is that your chats remain after the service is over, which is really exciting, which is something that when you, even a month ago when you were here, it didn't do, which means that if you come back tomorrow, there might be somebody who watched this service at an hour or two after we broadcast, and they added their comment. You could be in ongoing conversation with people in different time zones, which is really very nice. But the chat, which is active right now, when it becomes comments after the service is over, moves underneath the viewing screen versus next to it. It's sort of stylistically different. I think you'll get used to it. Another thing is if you're watching on mobile right now, we're still having a little bit of problem with what's called the frame. It may be your picture is a little small. If you're looking on a phone, mobile phone, turn it sideways. The portrait works better than the landscape works better than the portrait in that format. So we're working these details out. But you need to log in to comment. If you don't want to comment, you just want to watch the service, you don't need to do a thing. Sit back, put your feet up, enjoy. This is using technology, which is really exciting. We used it before we had the internet. We use a microphone. I still preached at your place. You have a microphone up there.
We do indeed.
Right? So it's a chance to, technology is a way to create community, and then you can dialogue in real time or chat over time. And then it's really about having a different kind of voice, because ultimately what we're doing here at ourjewishcommunity.org isn't just using the technology for no purpose. It's really to create a very bold Judaism that's grounded in evidence and in a sense of human responsibility to recognize that ultimately nothing's going to rescue us from ourselves, that we have to take moral responsibility for the world in which we live, for our own actions, to recognize how we interact as community. And then we've tried to, in our work here at Congregation Beth Adam and in Our Jewish Community, is to create new language for that. what we say matters. Words are the lens through which we see the world, or the map which guides us. And while for some folks, traditional language, religious language may speak to them, we believe that a new, bolder, clearer language needs to be created. We need to mean what we say and say what we mean. So we're delighted you're here, whether you're in real time, chatting right now, or you're going to be watching this in archives at some point later. It's great to have you a part of this community. We're going to continue with the candle lighting, and then we're going to dive into our conversation. Night seeps up from the ground. Light falls from the stars, icy and distant, ancient beyond all who came before. But the light of the Sabbath is warm. The light of the Sabbath is ours. The light of the Sabbath is of this time, of this place, of lives that know the past only in a dream.
As we kindle these lights, we create a place of warmth. As we kindle these lights, we welcome this time for reflection. As we kindle these lights, we stake our claim. And while these lights burn, the time is ours.
Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. Thank you. And she did that very well, putting it in the sacred container to make sure. We were having a conversation because it's a little bit sort of yucky, the glass with the water in it, but that's not the conversation we're going to have right now. Though it seemed to be
I still want to say something. I'll say nothing.
You're such a good, we're old friends, so it's really nice. So,
I'll say nothing.
My
face says it all.
That's it. It's so horrific. It's so dirty. The candle cup. Okay. So we're going to have
it's very holy over there.
It's very holy. So this is Reverend Sharon Dittmar of First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati, which is in Avondale?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And it's a wonderful space. It's a wonderful community. I've had the privilege and honor of being there. One of the great things that you did for me was allow me to preach a Christmas Eve sermon. I hold that as one of my great moments.
Really?
I do. And I don't know if I ever told you this. It made it into a play. The sermon, so I was able to give Christmas Eve sermon. It was about 5 years ago, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. And there was a group in Philadelphia that found it online. And they were doing, so instead of, they did songs and readings and stories, and they called me up, they heard the sermon online, and they asked me if they could use the end of my sermon to end their show. And I went to the show. It was wild.
You went to the show?
Yeah, I had to be in New York for a function, so I was able to be in Philly. I just flew to Philadelphia the day before and then took the train. And I watched people read the end of my sermon, and it was all because of you.
So I'm honored.
So it was great.
I'm deeply honored.
So we're going to have if we need to cut this, I'm going to start this again. So we're going to have a conversation right now about the concept of renewal. You were explaining to me before services that the Unitarian movement we're
religion. You could even call us a religion.
You're a religion, but okay, I think
you could call us
a religion.
We're an association of congregations, not a denomination. Small but important point. I won't go into why. It would bore you to tears.
Really?
Really it would.
Okay. So you were creating sort of a liturgical speaking calendar.
Yeah, so we don't follow a liturgical calendar like our Christian friends. And so sometimes then it would mean, for example, I'd be doing sermon after sermon. It would be very different topics. And so at some point it felt, I think, a little disconnected for people. And so the UUA has started this worship curriculum material called Soul Matters. And then it provides resources for worship, religious education, music, children's stories, small groups. And so then there's like a theme for the month. So October was renewal.
And so if we were to go to a Unitarian church in Boston, they might likely have the same
May or
theme.
may not.
So it's not nationwide.
No, not every.
Oh, got it.
I would say only 1 out of 10 congregations is currently using it. I love it.
Okay, so and we were talking before, so we thought we'd delve into, because you've been preaching about the concept of renewal, and it was sort of intriguing to me, particularly for those of us who are Jewish, having celebrated Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur just a month ago. It sort of had that same feel to it. So I'm sort of curious, what did you do with the theme of renewal?
I actually loved renewal. So. The first sermon I preached was on mass incarceration, because folks who either have a felony conviction or misdemeanor are considered returning citizens. And you can have a felony and never go to prison in the United States, but then you are marked in a category of people who often have actually up to 60% rates of unemployment, even for rather small crimes. And so if all these people are coming back, actually 98% of people who go to prison come back. How are we going to reintegrate them into society? So how are they going to return? They're citizens. They're returning citizens. So how do we reintegrate them? That was one sermon I did, and I loved that sermon. And then we had a dinner conversation with returning citizens. It was awesome.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So when you give a sermon like that, you were talking to a congregation about what our responsibility is as a community, as a nation. How do we reintegrate our own citizens into the fabric of our lives? What's the...
Yeah, and I think I was like, well, first of all, you're going to love this. I used a passage from Genesis. I used Jacob, who has to return and make peace with Esau.
Right.
And I used Jacob as a returning citizen.
Wow.
I know. I was like, well, let's list the crimes of Jacob, and you can
Right.
well, I don't know, identity theft.
Sure,
I mean, a whole bunch of stuff, right? And his
identity,
mother,
I think that's odd that in the Bible they were already doing that, and today
totally. And so
in the digital age it still happens.
And I think I actually originally preached this sermon for a African-American congregation, so I used very God-based language for it. And so I talked about the Bible as a cycle of kind of creation and redemption, and people fail but also get redeemed. And so how God keeps reaching out to people who are failures and helping them to redeem themselves, as they also help themselves. But he chooses Jacob to be the leader of the nation of Israel. He doesn't choose the most, quote, perfect person.
No, but what was interesting about that story is his mother's in the background shaping who gets picked.
She's terrible. I feel bad for Esau.
So it's interesting. So let me ask you a question. So while renewal is our theme,
Esau gets ditched by everyone in his family. His dad doesn't know who he is. Like, where has his dad been? I can't tell my sons apart. I mean, anyway.
But I preached. It's interesting. So this was not the theme, but when I preached on the topic of that particular story, Jacob and Esau, where the mother Rebecca is in the background, making sure that the second son inherits the birthright versus the first son. What I argued is this is an example once more of when women understand what the future needs more than the men do, and she picked the more apropos son that if tradition had been followed.
How can women possibly always know what's right? I as a feminist, I just say I can't.
Well, the mother certainly knew the quality of her two sons better than the father did, who couldn't tell them apart.
Okay, I'll give you that, because where has he been?
Okay, so let's get back.
I can't tell them apart.
Okay.
You're not furry enough. You're furry enough. I just am like, ah!
This is why clergy don't work together a lot, because we get distracted by the theme. So renewal. Okay, so what you preached about that? That's an interesting. What other? Just give us a
smattering. And then the next one is the in the new era of Unitarian Universalism, religions in the United States, I don't know about elsewhere, are going through enormous shifts in how we collect, how people join, how they pledge or not. And I feel like we need to evolve to step into the state that's already with us. But many congregations within the Unitarian Universalist faith are kind of holding on to old habits that aren't helping us.
So let me just want to be clear. So you're talking about financial support?
Everything. I just feel like, so a congregation might argue about carpet color rather than worrying about having a viable mission statement. And then it's easy to do that, but then your congregation really isn't like living a full life or a challenging life or a life that offers transformation. And so I just feel like there's some things we need to like get going, because the world is really changing. There used to be a whole bunch of people who just pledged to our congregations even when we didn't do that well. That was like the gestalt of the older generations, and that's changing, and I think we really need to respect it. It's an opportunity for us in a way to grow up. I think we should grow up.
Right. Well, I think
this is different. What you're doing, great.
Right, and I think the challenge is, we are living in we've talked about it a bit, I know, because our congregation is about the same size, and how demographics are changing, how people affiliate, what they're looking for, what does affiliation mean? Does religion matter? Are we the voice of morality today, or is
we're not the only voice, but we're a voice.
Among?
You think there are no other voices of morality?
I happen to think there should be. I just wonder oftentimes that, particularly, I would argue that traditional religion has a louder voice and is often asked to the table more frequently than liberal voices.
And you're saying like a conservative voice, like they dominate the public square.
Right. And particularly around issues of morality. And I said to you, because I really, I thought, I've heard you preach, and you have a strong social justice sort of ministry, and you have a lot of expertise in that area. But oftentimes, I think your voice isn't heard the same way as a more conservative or traditional religionist speaking on a topic is.
I'm no Billy Graham.
Right. There's a perfect, exactly. Right. And because you preach it out of a different sort of authority set.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that makes a difference. So that's interesting. But yeah, religion is changing, and how we do that becomes incredibly important. So we talked about you recidivism. I mean, you really, it's interesting how you sort of teased out. Did you personal renewal at all? Personal?
I did.
Oh, what did you say? Do you remember? I do, because I just got to hear it.
oh yeah. I said my cell phone has become like this instrument that I look at all the time, and I feel like it's a time waster, and I'm not living my best life. And so that my cell phone, I should only look at it morning, afternoon, and evening. This is my personal cell phone, so that it's not. I'm like losing myself on Facebook and emails, and it's like I'm losing my internal voice and. Well, there's this quote by Albert Camus.
okay, there you go.
And it says, in order to help me remember it if I butcher it, in order to understand oneself, you must turn away from the world on occasion, right?
Understand one's self or one's life?
Well, either.
Okay, oneself. Turn away, which is an interesting. We were talking about it because I mean, and I think that's one of the conversations certainly that I've talked about over the years about what Sabbath can be.
Yes.
I mean, I think, and what I want to be really clear about, because I think it's really certainly easy in the Jewish community for people to drift into this notion of you have to take a full day and not do anything. I don't believe that. I really do not believe that once a week one has to sort of sequester themselves. But I do think there are times throughout a year and throughout a life that pausing and not being impinged upon by everything else is valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And I liked your first sheet. Bring that over here. When I read this, it said, what could be in seeing with new eyes? I think that's the purpose of renewal. And if we don't sometimes stop, we can just keep going in whatever pattern or habit or belief that we or other people tell us is the best, but it might not be the best for us.
And I think, too...
Or we might have changed and need something else.
Right. And I think too, oftentimes... And it even sort of touches base about the issue of the carpeting of the church.
Yes.
I think for many people, life is easier when we deal with little things.
Yes.
Because it keeps us from really focusing on the harder questions. So we can watch Facebook or look at Facebook or be a lot of distractions, or we can go to synagogue or church and we can argue about the color of the carpeting. But the real big questions about what is purpose in life and what is meaning, we get to push away because those are anxiety provoking.
Yes.
And I think that is why a lot of times we do it. In fact, I think people want to be distracted because it's oftentimes really pausing and thinking about, so what am I doing?
Yes. Who am I?
Who am I? You know, at my age, I know I've lived longer than I will live.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The poet Mary Oliver says, "What will I do with my one wild and precious life?" What a great question.
That is a great line, wild and precious life. And I think that's interesting because, you know, when we're talking about renewal, this to me really is, and when you said it, I was sort of taken aback a little bit because the world sounds like, renewal sounds like starting anew again, beginning again, versus the sense of pausing and being refocused on what I want to do, right? And what I should be doing and how I do. But I think distractions, I think we do have to turn away. I think the same metaphor is the way you see light is to see darkness. You can't, if we always lived in light, we would never, the concept would mean nothing to us. And if we're always busy, it's easy never to think about what's going on.
Absolutely, to lose oneself
so
without even trying.
Right. I think it's an incremental little
And
steps.
you could be socially rewarded, like you're a good parent or you made money, keep going. And no one is like, by the way, I haven't heard you say anything unique about you in years, but who cares? Keep going. You're socially succeeding, but maybe inwardly dying.
Right, and you may not be aware of it simply because you're so busy.
Yes.
The busyness overwhelms us, and it makes us feel like we're being success because we don't know what the word success means other than what society often says.
I know. What if success is like happiness or living one's best life, or as Joseph Campbell said, finding your bliss? Like, what if that is success rather than like what's parked in your driveway?
Well, when I teach ethics, that's how I teach ethics. I teach ethics very differently, and I do a lot of speaking about it. But I ask people that. I actually do a grid, and And I think one of the challenges oftentimes is we don't ask ourselves those kind of questions. And we don't say, well, what is it that will give me happiness? Because we don't, and I think in part, too, we were never given permission to do that. And this was where I think we represent modern religion versus traditional religion. Traditional religions didn't say that you got to pick your future.
Yes.
Right? Your future was dictated by God. God, here are the rules, and if you followed the rules, certainly in Judaism.
And consider the people who did were often mystics. I have an inner voice. Things didn't always go well for them. You know, like you have an inner voice. You're scaring us.
The prophets they didn't like the prophets because they were independent. So we get rule-bound religion, and the more because what's the greatest sin in the Bible?
Disobedience.
Of course, yeah. Sarah, who gets punished the worst? Eve. I mean, she gets right. She gets.
Well, you made my mind swim. I'm like, I don't know, women, children. I just couldn't keep up with it all. Who gets punished the worst?
No, because Eve. So in that particular story, they all get punished, but she's then told that she will be ruled over by the man.
We should do a session and talk about Adam and Eve.
Okay, good. We'll do that. So we're going to do a session on Adam and Eve.
We have to talk about Adam and Eve.
So, but think about it. Traditional religions didn't give people freedom. It didn't say you were supposed to search for yourself. So for a long time, clergy got up and say, here is what you were supposed to do. This is what the book says, whichever book we were reading out of. Here are the rules, and you will be rewarded not in this world, in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so we never learned for clergy to get up and say, how are you going to be happy? What is your purpose? Only you know your purpose. No one can, I can't tell you your purpose.
Right.
And so renewal, I mean, in some ways, it's and you've talked about this in the Unitarians, it's very sort of countercultural in many ways.
I think the idea of real renewal is profoundly countercultural.
Right. And subversive in many ways.
Absolutely and utterly.
Right?
Yes, to listen to oneself. The first source in Unitarian Universalism is the direct experience. So it's your direct experience, it's my direct experience. It's not going to be the same for any person. That's pretty countercultural just to begin with. But do we have enough time for me to say a little bit?
Yeah, okay, I'll give you 2 more minutes.
Okay, excellent. So you talked about disobedience being the biggest sin. Did you use the word sin?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, in the Bible?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because in the 1960s, feminist theologians tried to rework sin. And so the ideas of disobedience, greed, lust were the sins of people in power, which we see a lot in the Bible. It's a very patriarchal system. And I think we see that in some of our more conservative or fundamentalist branches in any religion. They're very patriarchal. But also then the sins of women are so interesting. They're different. They're not taking up the space that you should inhabit. They're the sins of giving in and giving over too quickly. And I just think that is so interesting as a concept. And, so when I think about the Bible, I get torn immediately. The biggest sin, I don't know, women and children don't matter. Judges, I don't know where to begin, But I don't know. And then I think this is why renewal is important. If we don't stop, we'll never ask these questions. We'll just go down the path of the same old story, even if it's not helping anyone.
Right. So I think that's a great sort of ending that we need to stop, pause.
Absolutely.
Not right the second.
Oh, okay, but I'm ready. I'll stop.
But the idea of stopping and pausing and really looking inward and readjusting. Yeah. And recalibrating our lives and deciding what's important. So that's great. I think this is really interesting. So we're going to do, next... we're going to do Adam and Eve, and we have Grace. So I'm going to be posting, and just write Reverend Sharon Dittmar lots of nice notes, so she keeps on coming back throughout.
They don't all have to be nice.
Yeah, they Okay, just write me nice notes, and you can write her anything she wants.
You don't need to write him nice notes. He's from Detroit. It just brushes right off.
That's right. This goes right. It's like water off a duck, as my mother used to say. So this is really a lot of fun. It's so much fun to have these conversations, to really sort of tease out ideas with somebody who's been involved with it, who's been preaching about them. This is great. So we're going to continue with our challah reading.
Okay.
Would you like to read the challah reading? Look at the challah. What are you going to say?
It actually smells great, and I'm not lying. Like apparently...
Clergy don't ever lie, do they?
Yes, they do. Apparently, you've noticed that some challah is wrinkly here, and yeah. So this challah, though, it's like fresh. It's like,
Because and the reason it is, it's not because you're a special guest. It's the reason. In addition, right, you don't believe me? Good. And the other reason it's sliced, so we have services, bricks and mortar service. And it was so nice of you to say that you're going to preach tonight that I could go home early.
No, I did not say that.
I thought you did.
No.
All right, we have it on tape. Okay.
All right, Hala?
Yes.
All right, my friends. From the earth, a seed harbored in darkness, from heat and cold and wet and dry, to wind and air and rain. Golden ground, flour from wheat, with water and yeast, active and alive. Always something saved. From this earth, sweetness and salt. From nature tamed oil and eggs. Mixed and rested in darkness and warmth. Kneaded smooth, made right by touch. Hands that shape, mouths that want. From the earth, our challah, our warmth.
Baruch HaMalkapenu, blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch Hazon HaAdam, blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch Lechem HaAretz, blessed is the bread of the earth. And if you want a piece, you can have a piece. It really, I'm going to do the wine or juice.
Okay.
So you can do, if you want to do that. So if you have some wine or juice, join with me. We lift the cup together as a tribute to our past, as a blessing for our future. May the allure of its untold flavors beckon us forever to keep uncovering new branches, new roots that hold us together. Tonight, as we welcome the Sabbath, may we find time to spend in our own quiet company and listen to the calling of our hearts. Bruchim hachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim hachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. So we say l'chaim, to life. So before we end, a couple quick announcements. Next week, Rabbi Ofer Sabbath Beit Halachmi is going to be joining me. Ofer, do you know? Some of you may have been with Rachel, Rabbi Rachel. Sabbath Beit Halachmi joined me about 2 weeks ago. This is her husband. That's why the names sound similar, and they're unusual names. That's why it's not like a common name. And he is a rabbi ordained in Israel and living in the States now. So we're going to have a conversation. So I'm really excited about that. I encourage you, if you've not done this already, to go to our Cincinnati OJC, cincinnatiojc.org. There's on that page, you'll see the Steen Metz interview, and you can also watch his presentation. Steen was a Holocaust survivor. He was 8 years old when he was taken to Theresen. Very interesting, and his interview's interesting, and his the presentation, if you want to watch, that's long. The interview's about 5 minutes. What's fascinating, he lived through it as a child, and he had to learn about it afterwards. Because as a child, when you're 8, you don't really know what's happening to you.
He made a story in his head probably about what
and
it
his
was.
and his mother was protecting him. And it's very interesting. It's how he grew up, and they had to confront and understand it. So I would encourage you to do that. I mentioned last week, and I'll mention again, that our Hanukkah Christmas cards are on Zazzle. If you go to Zazzle.com
Wait a minute. Hanukkah Christmas cards?
Yeah, because there's a lot of interfaith couples. And right? And
Absolutely.
so right? And so rather than
Good idea.
So this is unique to Congregation Beth Adam. If you go to Zazzle.com, the company, and you type in ourjewishcommunity.org, you will find them there. They are designed by members who are graphic designers here. There's some beautiful ones. I have some that are particularly my favorite, some that are whimsical. A very whimsical one is Santa Claus leading his sled, and I think, what's the reindeer's name? The little one with the red nose?
Rudolph?
Rudolph, thank you. Is a Jewish star. So it's really cute. Go look at those. That way you can do interfaith. Isn't that cute? So they're really cute. They're nice. It's a way to be respectful to how people are really living their lives versus trying to figure that out. And I know some people have actually ordered them in bulk. You can have them customized and then use them if you have a company or a business that you want to send cards out to people. It's just a way to welcome them in a different way. Lots going on. Go to the Facebook page. We keep posting things, what's coming up, upcoming events. Go to our website, ourjewishcommunity.org, and join us again next week and every week for Shabbat services, whether in real time, if you can be here, or watch in archives when it's convenient. You can watch on your cell phone. Just take a moment to pause, to reflect, to renew.
Yes.
And so we end with, may we know blessings those who are near, and may we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.